Hello again. Hi. Very good news yesterday about the request for leave to appeal, and I'm not sure exactly when it's going to happen that the judge looks at it and either accepts it, which we hope, or not. And then I think I've read actually that then there can be a further request, which then is a full hearing in court, which is before 2 or 3 judges. People are saying on Twitter, or X as it's now called, that they believe, I'm not sure exactly how they know, but they believe that the legal team is as was, with the same solicitor, Richard Thomas, I think his name is, and Ben Myers, KC. But I haven't seen actually anybody put any definitive proof of that or any confirmation of that. I sent a couple of emails to the solicitor and to Ben Myers in respect to the few points that have been coming up lately through other people's finding out things, and an inference that I've made myself in terms of the potential disparity between when Evans says he's read about police involvement there and whatever the actual date of the email that he sent to the National Crime Agency is. I don't know whether they'll look at the emails or consider these points, or whether they'll consider them valid or pertinent to how they're going to engage with the appeal, on what grounds. That's the other thing, we don't know what the grounds are yet. I've not seen anything. What grounds are they using to bring the appeal, or to ask for leave to appeal? I think that's the phrase that's being said. Different phrases in the legal world, but they're requesting to appeal. A judge has got to confirm it or affirm it. It's like that it can go through. And then, obviously, if it does, which we hope, then they begin to build how they're going to approach it. But I don't know if there's going to be another Zoom meeting on Science on Trial tomorrow. If there is, I'm going to listen in. I just usually listen in, and sometimes put a few things in the chat. But hopefully, if there is, it's usually about 11:30 or at 11:30 on a Sunday morning. So maybe they'll have some more information with regard to the current legal team and that sort of thing. I want to go back now to the Talk TV interview that Dewi Evans did towards the end of August, and we're up to a next bit of the sort of script, as it were, because I've typed it all out. So, quote from Dr. Evans: "So I received a copy of the clinical notes of over 30 babies who had either died or had collapsed he stumbles there a bit, between January 2015 and July 2016, and I looked at all of them." Well, what strikes me about that is the time frame, that they've gone back to the beginning of the year. This plays into the arguments that I was using before about artificially putting in a lot of cases that both the doctors and the police, and I believe Dewi Evans, have full knowledge that they're going to discount very easily in order to leave the 15 babies that Dewi Evans says in this interview that he chose out of the over 30, I think it's 33, it's been reported as 33 cases or babies that he was asked to look into or requested. There's all this shades of meaning about that. Who gave it to him? Who decided on that time frame? Was it him? Can we believe it was him if he says it was him? Was it a three-way process? I think it was a three-way process. It's about proving it. What I mean by that is that Evans knew what the police knew, and I think Evans knew what the police knew before the police knew it, because I think he's had contact with one or more of that gang of 4 consultants prior to police involvement, i.e. prior to whenever the exact date the police get involved, which we're told in some reports is the 27th of April. We're told that in certain videos and media reports, it's the 27th of April that Detective Hughes actually speaks with, presumably at the hospital, with Jayaram and Breary. So back to Dr. Evans's Talk TV interview. He explains that out of the 33 cases he was sent, some of the babies had died for what he says is understandable reasons. He lists 3 main factors. He says hemorrhage, infection, or some congenital problem, for instance. This is a quote. Hemorrhage, infection, or some congenital problem, for instance. But I identified 15 babies who I thought, then he stumbles his words, whose collapse or death I could not explain as a natural cause. Pauses. And in addition to that, their collapse not only was unexpected, but, he stumbles again, I felt it was due to a condition we call air embolus. It was as if someone had injected air into their circulation directly. Other babies collapsed as a result. In my opinion, other babies, this is him speaking still, other babies collapsed as a result, in my opinion, of someone injecting loads and loads of milk or milk and air directly into the stomach. And if you give loads and loads of milk, this interferes with their breathing and they collapse. Well, the first thing that strikes me there is what would be interesting is to do, if he sent 33 cases, so cases being presumably a child, because he reduces it down to 15, so that leaves 18 other cases that he dismisses very easily, as we've talked about, or as I talked about in an earlier video. And he's saying hemorrhage, infection, or some congenital problem. Well, in those other 18 cases, well, which ones are they then? That's what needed to have been looked at, and looked at in the court. I don't know if it was. We don't have the full transcript. In other words, were those other 18 babies, did they die or crash because of hemorrhage, infection, or some congenital problem? And if so, what? And if it's infection, like sepsis, where's that come from with those other babies over that time period? What's caused that? And with some of the babies that died or crashed, in terms of that's what they call it, crashing, sudden deterioration in health, but who didn't die, with those cases that Lucy Letby was blamed for, many of those had query sepsis on the medical notes, i.e. query and infection. But he's choosing the other ones for infections being explainable reasons, so he can jettison them. And all those ones happen to be ones where Lucy Letby isn't the main nurse, or isn't there to be blamed, as it were. So he can have infection for the other ones, but we don't know all the details of those, of the health deterioration or the sad death of those other babies. We don't know what they are. We don't know whether they were looked at in court, in other words, in comparison to the ones he did choose, which all happen to be related to Lucy. And the other point is, if it is hemorrhage, well, what would have caused the hemorrhage in these other... So he's saying that's an explainable and expected hemorrhage then. Because he's choosing these other cases and he's determining, in his language, is what he's saying, not me. He's saying the ones that he's left with are unexplainable and unexpected. But the ones he could discount as not to worry about included babies that had hemorrhages and infections, or congenital problems. Well, congenital problems might have been identified before, but let's look at hemorrhages and infection. Hemorrhages is bleeding of one kind, internally or externally, isn't it? So, are all hemorrhages explainable? And were they explained in those cases that he dismissed? Out of the 33, he took out 18 of them. Are all infections explained? Were those infections explained? Were they looked into? What was the cause of the infection? Might it have been some connection with the hospital wastewater system? With the flooding of sewage that had come up in certain parts of the neonatal ward? With the cracked pipes that were running over the top, which I think was either respiratory or a stroke ward above the neonatal ward? what would be important to see is what he's left out and all the reasons why he's saying they're unexplainable. And those deaths and those crashes have to be looked into forensically. I don't know if the defence even did that. Did they just focus on, or anyone else did it? Clearly, Evans, he did it in automatically, I think, because he knew the ones he wanted to be left with, because he knew the ones that they would tally, and they would match the ones that the consultants wanted him to, quote unquote, find, to be reduced to that list that creates all the crosses down that the prosecutor uses. Oh my God, look, there's crosses by every name. What's in shadow in all this are all the other cases, as David Curtin sort of mentions in his video today, the other deaths, the other crashes. But there's even certainly more crashes that weren't even considered within that 33. There would be more across that. Well, he's looking at a period not of a year, of 18 months here. There'll be more crashes that are that are beyond that 33 that he's looked at. What happened there? Were they due to sepsis? Were they due to some infection from something going on related to the hospital wastewater? I know you can overdo the stuff about when people stumble and trip over the words, as I do often in these videos, and pauses, but often there's something going on, and I haven't trained in statement analysis or anything, but you can pick up sort of some ideas that sometimes when there's pauses or there's stumbling, there's some tension there, potentially that. I just thought it was interesting that, and the phrasing as well, the word choice, where he says, so he gives the list of the 3 reasons that he could, which were understandable reasons, not unexpected and not unexplained, even though they include hemorrhage and infection apparently. So anyway, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So infections are all expected, but I've been over that. But he says, but I identified 15 babies who I thought. It's what he thinks, isn't it? They're giving themselves away all the time. It's just what he thinks. It's his opinion. So he doesn't know. And we know that he doesn't know anyway. But he's telling us the level of his knowledge here, which is just purely opinion-based and it's just what he thinks. And then he stumbles. So who I thought, I wonder if he thought, I shouldn't have said I thought about it. I just thought that happened. Doesn't sound very scientific or conclusive, is it? These are the ones where I just thought, leaves it very open to, or somebody else could think something else. And that was the trouble. That was the great gap in the defence. There were no expert witnesses there saying what they thought or what their opinions were to contend what he's saying. So he says, so I thought whose death or collapse I could not explain as a natural cause. I thought I couldn't explain it. I just thought I couldn't explain it. And in addition to that, their collapse not only was unexpected, and he stumbles again, and here's another very unusual word choice, I felt it was due to a condition we call air umbilus. Well, that's convincing, isn't it? It's just he's thinking something, I just feel it. I just got this weird feeling, and it ends up becoming accepted as fact and brings about a conviction and sending an innocent person to prison for the rest of their life based on what he feels and what he thinks. Maybe I'll go over some of the other cases he's been involved in before, in which he determines that someone's got Munchausen by proxy. This is in other cases. He's not even met them. He's not met the person. He's deciding people's fate by looking at bits of paper, printouts of bits of paper and computer records 2 years after down the line, which might not be in any way complete whatsoever. And there's the whole side of it that I think he knows exactly who's been pointed out and who's been focused on before the police even get there. But we've got to prove that. We've got to prove that in some way. Hope someone comes forward to the defence and gives them that information. Another weak statement coming out here. There's a lot of them. So he said, I felt it was this embolus thing. Yeah. And he ends up using this you might have heard already that he uses some research, a paper from 1987, so that's 35 years old, out of date, and he contends that neonatal science hasn't changed that much, but a lot of people obviously disagree with that. There's been a lot of papers written since. I have to do a particular video about the air embolus because I don't have a medical background, but obviously a lot of people who do are writing a lot about that, challenging his whole notion about the main place to go to for that is Law, Health and Tech Substack, which is Dr. McLachlan's Substack. He's up to 19. I'm reading through them all again. He's up to 19 posts on Lucy Letby, on the Lucy Letby case at the moment. And there's lots of stuff on Rex v Lucy Letby Facebook page and Science on Trial. A lot of stuff about Evans on the Chimp Investor site run by Peter Alston. I'll put some of the links in the, is it called the low bar or the description, whatever. I'll put some of the links there. Yeah, many of you will be familiar with them anyway, but for people who aren't, I'm just going to keep repeating these resources and statistic stuff from Richard Gill. I'll put his website down there as well. Sorry, I cut across myself there. So I felt it was due to a condition, and then he says, and then there's a slight pause, and he goes, it was as if someone had injected air into their circulation directly. So what have we got here? You got him thinking, oh, I thought it couldn't be explained by a natural cause. I thought it. And then he thinks, and I felt it was due to a condition. I felt it. And then it was as if. Doesn't sound very scientific, doesn't sound as though he's excluded all the other possibilities, does it? It's just him thinking, feeling, and thinking, oh, it's as if this happened. But what about if it's as if something else happened? What about feeling that? What about thinking that? But he didn't do any of that, because he's honed in directly to getting Lucy Letby in conjunction with the police and the consultants. And they've been at it for the best part of 2 years, those consultants. So he goes on in that quite long statement. It was as if someone had injected air into their circulation directly. Other babies collapsed as a result. And then he stumbles. In my opinion, back to his opinion again. I don't know. Yes, he's offering his opinion, but he's saying what he feels, and he's saying it's as if this happened. It was kind of as if that happened, and I sort of felt that might have happened, and I thought that could have happened. Doesn't sound convincing to me. He might have stated it differently in the court, but this is the point of doing this video and this analysis of his language is this is where he was at. This is the level he's at. Thinking, opinion, thinking, oh, it's as if that's happened. Oh yeah, that's what happened then. Oh, that definitely happened then. Oh, nothing else could have happened. That had to have happened. Yeah, there's no way, absolutely, definitely happened. He's building it from could that have happened? I think it might have happened. It's as if that happened, into it had to have happened. And there you see the fabrication. You see the journey he's on until like he's obviously done with someone else, saying they got Munchausen by proxy. Like Professor Roy Meadow did with Sally Clark. Bogusness, absolute bogus characters making these statements in these absolute assured statements that they know what's happened when they don't know at all, and the consequences are absolutely hideous for their victims, and they are their victims, whether it's Sally Clark or Lucy Letby, or the other victims of Professor Roy Meadow, or the other victims of Evans in previous cases, and there's other cases to look into. So he goes back to, I'm just going to finish with this last bit here and then leave it for this video. In my opinion of somebody, so they collapsed as a result, I stumble. In my opinion of someone injecting loads and loads of milk, that's not very sort of loads and loads, doesn't sound like a medical scientific person. Oh, it's just loads and loads, is it? Oh, it's loads and loads, yeah. Well, and I know he's talking to a journalist, he might not want to get too be in the same register as if he's talking in a medical way or in a court, but it still strikes me as odd. Of loads and loads of milk, or milk and air directly into the stomach. Stumble, pause. And if you give loads and loads of milk, loads and loads again, loads and loads, I thought, it was as if loads and loads. You see how weak it is? You give loads and loads of milk. I keep saying this because it pushes you to who he is, to how his mind works. The fact that he's gone for something based on these tenuous ideas, but more precisely, he's ignored all other possibilities. Deliberately, because he's on a mission. They don't call him Mr. Evidence for Hire for nothing. So just to get to the end of this, sorry if I've been a bit manic. Well, I can't help it. I get upset by this. ... he stumbles, and if you give loads and loads of milk, this interferes with their breathing. ... again. And therefore they collapse. Okay, so I think I'll leave it there until the next time. There's so much in there, as you see, that he's revealing. So anyway, that's it. That's it for that section anyway. It's part 4 of looking at it. Perhaps next week we'll hear, I don't know when the date will be, when the judge will be looking at the application for leave to appeal, and whether we'll find out who the legal team is, and hopefully that individual judge will accept the request for leave to appeal, or if they turn it down, then as I said before, I've read or I've heard that you can then challenge that and have a full hearing of between 2 and 3 judges in a court, in which you make a larger submission, I suppose, and obviously more than one judge considers that submission. Anyway, take care, everyone. All the best. Bye.